The Buyer-Brokerage Agreement protects you as a buyer, but only if you understand what you're signing. Hey everyone, I'm John Barczak, a realtor with Integrity Real Estate, and this is Maryland Real Estate with John, where we break down the home buying and selling process step by step. In my buyer representation video, we mentioned the reasons for the Buyer-Brokerage Agreement. In this video, we're going to walk through the Maryland Realtors Buyer-Brokerage Agreement, section by section, and briefly cover the most common addenda, so you understand what the agreement says, what it doesn't say, and what questions to ask before signing it. Let's jump in. The Buyer-Brokerage Agreement, or BBA, is a written agreement that formally establishes a professional relationship between you and your buyer's agent. It defines who represents you, for how long, what services the brokerage will provide, and how compensation works. Just as importantly, it also outlines your responsibilities as a buyer. In this video, we're specifically discussing the 2025 version of Maryland Realtors BBA, titled Exclusive Buyer/Tenant Residential Brokerage Agreement. The first two sections of the document, buyer information and broker information, are straightforward. Buyer information identifies who is being represented. Broker information identifies the brokerage and the specific agent working with you. This information ensures there's no confusion about who the agreement applies to. Section 3 is buyer authorization. It states that the buyer agrees to work exclusively with the identified brokerage when purchasing or leasing residential property. In simple terms, this means you're agreeing not to work with multiple agents at the same time. This is about avoiding confusion, not limiting your options unfairly. Section 4 is buyer agency term. This section defines how long the agreement is in effect. It includes a specific start date and end date, which can be as short as a day or extend for several months. If you go under contract before the agreement expires, the term automatically extends through settlement. This section also explains how the agreement can be terminated, which is an important conversation to have before signing. Section 5 is broker's compensation. Buyer-agent compensation is not set by law and is fully negotiable. This section clearly defines how the broker will be compensated, whether as a dollar amount, a percentage, or a combination of both. It also explains that the buyer is ultimately responsible for the agreed compensation, which is typically paid at settlement. If the seller or listing broker offers compensation, that amount can offset what the buyer owes, up to the amount stated in the agreement. The key takeaway here is clarity. Nothing should be vague or assumed. Section 6 is broker responsibility. This section outlines the duties your buyer's agent agrees to perform. This includes using their professional knowledge to identify suitable properties, assisting throughout the transaction, and acting in your best interest at all times. Section 7 is intra-company agent representation. This section addresses what happens if the same brokerage represents both the buyer and the seller, commonly referred to as dual agency. Buyers are not required to consent to dual agency. If a buyer chooses not to consent, their agent will not be able to show them properties listed by other agents within the same brokerage. A separate consent form is required if dual agency ever applies. This protects your ability to choose how you're represented. Section 8 is fair housing. This section reinforces fair housing protections. Buyers agree not to submit personal letters, videos, or other communications explaining why their offer should be accepted. While these tactics may seem harmless, they can raise serious fair housing concerns and are best avoided. Fair housing rules protect everyone in the transaction. Section 9 is buyer responsibility. This section outlines the buyer's obligations. Buyers agree to work exclusively through their agent, provide accurate financial information, and coordinate showings and property visits through their agent. This helps ensure everyone is protected and the process stays organized. Now, let's go through the last 4 sections of the agreement. Section 10, Disclaimer and Limitations, mentions that the broker is not a legal, tax, or inspection expert. Section 11, Flood Disclosure Notice, encourages buyers to research flood risk. Section 12, Repairs of Property, notes that repairs to the property, if needed, may need to be done by licensed contractors. Section 13, Legal Construction, simply confirms that this document is a legally binding agreement. Importantly, the Buyer-Brokerage Agreement does not require you to buy a home. In addition to the main agreement, buyers are often asked to sign several addenda. These documents provide additional disclosures and explanations, but they don't change who represents you. These addenda commonly include the consent for dual agency, understanding whom real estate agents represent, MLS disclosures, and Maryland's consumer notice to buyers. Next, we'll explain the purpose for each of these 4 addenda. The consent for dual agency addendum applies only if the same brokerage represents both buyer and seller. Buyers are never required to consent. If a buyer chooses not to sign, their agent cannot show properties listed by other agents within the same brokerage. If a buyer later decides to make an offer on an in-house listing, this form is presented again for confirmation. The document, Understanding Whom Real Estate Agents Represent, explains the difference between buyer's agents and seller's agents. It confirms who represents whom in the transaction and helps avoid misunderstandings about agency roles. The MLS Disclosures document explains what the Multiple Listing Service, or MLS, is and how it works. Buyers simply acknowledge that they understand the MLS is the primary database used to list and share properties for sale. Lastly, the Consumer Notice to Buyers encourages buyers to be aware of factors that may impact a property, such as covenants and use restrictions, existing tenants, solar panel or propane tank leases, and smoke alarm and safety requirements. It's designed to prompt awareness, not to approve or disapprove specific properties. The Buyer-Brokerage Agreement is about clarity, protection, and expectations. You should never feel rushed to sign it, and you should always feel comfortable asking questions before you do. Thanks for watching. Understanding your Buyer-Brokerage Agreement helps you start the home buying process with confidence. Everything we covered in this video, and the entire Maryland home buying process, is laid out step by step in my Home Buyer's Handbook. If you'd like a copy, head over to johnbarczak.com, go to the Contact section, and message me for a free PDF of the handbook. I'm happy to send it your way. If you haven't already checked out my complete home buying playlist, go to my channel and give it a look. And if you're planning to buy or sell in Maryland, especially in or around Harford County, I'd love to help. Don't forget to subscribe for more real estate insights, and have a great day.